Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we will be doing an extremely late manga reading log for the first half of 2025. I actually did read a pretty decent bit of series, especially in the first half of 2025. So I think today's video will be pretty stacked. I actually also have consumed a couple of old favorite series, and I have a new top 10, top 20 manga series in this video, so you'll have to stay tuned to see which one of those series has made it to the top. But as usual, we do have a supplemental crochet project, so I would like to introduce it to you. It's going to be a top for my partner. This is the stitch pattern so far. It's kind of got a little mesh type of vibe going on, but not too mesh because we don't want to show too much skin, but enough to where it feels different. So yeah, that is what we're working on. This is the first panel. Without further ado, I think that's all I have to say, so we can get started with the actual first series of the video. So the first manga I read at the start of 2025 was actually the latest volume of Witch Hat Atelier, which was volume 13. I don't think a new volume has came out since at least the time of recording this video. It seems like the Japanese releases are very slow, so alas, because of that, the English releases are also equally slow, if not more slow. This volume specifically continues on with the festival arc that we were in during the last few volumes, and in the last video I talked about how this festival arc feels a lot like the Shibuya arc in Jujutsu Kaisen. I've never seen Jujutsu Kaisen, so I can never fully vouch for this, but it just feels like when people talk about Shibuya arc in Jujutsu Kaisen, they talk a lot about how it just seems like the culmination of all of the other things that have happened throughout the series. Even I know the arc right before Shibuya, I'm pretty sure it's a flashback, and you just put all these different aspects of the series together, and Shibuya is just kind of like a showdown. And I feel like the festival arc in Witch Hat Atelier, the one that we're in right now, I don't know what the specific name of it is, but the arc that we're in right now, it feels the same, the culmination of so many different aspects of the series have come together. But the main thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to this this volume specifically, is the themes that it presents. And this is kind of a theme that the series has as a whole, which is the youth versus the adults, where it feels like the adults in Witch Hat Atelier have been taught certain rules throughout their lives that they just feel compelled to follow, whereas the youth tend to kind of push the boundaries of what these rules mean and why we follow them, and try to find loopholes around them. Especially our main protagonist, Coco. If you're not familiar with the series, basically Coco, she was originally within the human world, but witnessed a witch performing magic and found out that witches actually learn magic rather than it being something that they're born with. And then from there, she's taken from the human world into the witch world. So I feel like because she's so new to the witch world, it gives her even more of an opportunity to question the rules of the witch world, because it wasn't something she was born into either. So Coco does a lot of questioning the rules and always trying to find a way to help people despite the rules that they have to follow. So I find that really inspiring, because I feel like this also applies into our current real world, which is the youth are the future. And these very, very old people who are currently making the rules and constantly reestablishing the rules are not doing any favors for the youth, and the youth have to be the ones to make change if that is what the youth want. And I feel like that message is really important for the way the world is right now, so I just wanted to really highlight that specifically. But as usual, Witch Hat Atelier never fails to keep me on my toes, so I'm really excited to see what happens in the next volume. I don't know when that's coming, so I might be struggling for a while when it comes to that series, but hopefully it comes out within the next year. And then the anime was supposed to come out in 2025, but it's already August, so I don't know when that's going to be coming or if they've made any more new announcements on that. But as soon as it comes out, you best believe I will be the first one to promote it. If you have not checked out Witch Hat Atelier, I do recommend the manga, but of course, if you are an anime watcher, you can always wait for the anime, which will hopefully be coming soon. So the next series we'll be talking about is something I promised in the last video, and that is Chainsaw Man Part 2. I finally did catch up to basically where it was releasing a couple months ago, so I might be a good 10 to 20 chapters behind at this point. But I was caught up at one point, so we will be discussing everything up till then. If you are unfamiliar with the plot of Chainsaw Man Part 2, I will give you a small synopsis. The second part of this hit series follows a new protagonist named Asamitaka. Within the first chapter, she enters into a contract with the War Devil. This War Devil, named Yoru, has the ability to take control of Asa's body and has the goal of taking down Chainsaw Man. Asa and Yoru, in the same body, attend the same high school as Denji, and the two have several run-ins with each other, as well as with other members of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. I think that is all I feel comfortable saying without getting into spoiler territories. There's just so much that happens in this manga, and if you're a Chainsaw Man fan, I feel like that kind of comes with the territory. Like, of course, there's going to be so much chaotic stuff happening, but I really feel like they upped the ante in part 2. Asa and Denji join school clubs, go on dates, make friends, kill people, have run-ins with cults and churches. Like, the list truly goes on, and I feel like every time I read a new chapter, they find a way to amaze me, honestly. I'm going to talk about spoilers specifically in just a moment, and I will flag that area so that those of you who have not read part 2 will not be spoiled, but just a couple of things I want to say. First off, I did become a fan of Chainsaw Man as a series as a whole towards the end of part 1. Actually, like during the hiatus between part 1 and part 2 is when I jumped on the bandwagon. So I never read part 1 as it came out. Like, I read it where I had access to the entirety of part 1. I kind of read it in a binging type of way where I just kind of like zoomed through it at my pace and everything was readily available to me. But part 2, different experience. I have been reading it. I was reading it a bit weekly once I finished, but then I kind of fell off of that. But I hate to be stupid in public, on a public platform like this, but I'm a little confused. Part 2 has left me a little confused, especially in the second half. Now we can talk about spoilers specifically, so if you have not read Chainsaw Man Part 2, please skip to a different timestamp that will be indicated. From now on, we are going into spoilers for Chainsaw Man Part 2. So, in terms of my understandability, like I said, I'm a little confused, but just to establish what parts I understood, I understood the Justice Devil arc, the Aquarium arc, even like the Falling Devil arc. All 3 of those ones were very clear to me, but I feel like once we started getting into the Cult Church arc, and past that, like into the Aging Devil arc, that was when you really started to lose me. And I think that a part of the reason why I get lost is because I feel like they're throwing a lot of characters at you, especially during the cult arc with all the different members and stuff. And I guess I feel the same way as I did during like the International Assassin arc, because at that arc as well, they were throwing a lot of people at you. But I also feel like the characters that were being thrown at you during that time were a lot of devils, a lot of like hybrids, a lot of fiends. So like they all had very distinct character designs, whereas in the cult, I feel like the people they're throwing at you have less like individuality with their designs, so it makes it harder for me to follow. And then also, I feel like a lot of the characters that they throw at you in the International Assassin arc, you don't have to really remember. You just know that they exist, but they're not like a recurring character. Whereas the cult people came back, and I was like, what are you doing here? I thought you were just for the last arc. Why are you still hanging out with the crew? I think that adds to my confusion a lot. But despite everything I just said, I don't want you to think that I didn't enjoy it. I really liked the cult church arc. I really appreciate when an artist is able to like toe that line between church and cult, because I do feel personally that the line between religions and cults is very, very, very narrow. It's very easy to fall on either side of that spectrum, and I think it was an interesting play on that with this arc. It was literally called the Chainsaw Church, I think. That shit was a cult. Like, that shit was a cult by definition. So yeah, really liked that arc. And even like the Aging Devil arc in theory was getting pretty interesting to me. I will say, this is spoilers even for myself, because honestly, I don't care as much about spoilers as other people might, but as I was researching for this video, just kind of getting an idea of where we left off at, I realized that I'm more further behind than I thought, because the Aging Devil arc, which I was like probably at the beginning of, is ended, and now they're onto a new arc, which is called the Death Devil arc, which sounds really endgame. I don't know how you get a more powerful a more powerful devil than the Death Devil. That's kind of what they've been like talking about and hinting at this whole part. So very interested to know if any of you guys are reading part 2. Can you tell me, do you think this is like the end? Or do you think they're going to find a way to make more after the Death Devil arc? Of course, I don't really know what the Death Devil arc entails. I just know that that's what it's called. So that sounds very intense. Let me know, but don't give me... you can let me know, but don't be too spoilerific in the comments. Because I don't mind knowing things, but once I learn the details of said things, that's when you start to lose me when it comes to spoilers. Back to the regular scheduled programming of non-spoiler content. So, if you are a Chainsaw Man Part 2 fan, please let me know in the comments below what you think of it so far. I know somebody commented last video and said that I would really like it, and they're not wrong, I did really like it. And a second question, do you think there will be a Part 3? Or do you think that, you know, with the current arc that they're in, they're going to actually end the series? Let me know your thoughts on that. I need to catch up so that I can form an opinion for myself, and maybe I'll, you know, put something in the description or the comments about how I feel once I catch up, maybe. In other Chainsaw Man news, I do want to discuss the Bomb Devil arc movie is slated to release, I think, in September or October, so very soon. I'm pretty excited for that because I did like the Chainsaw Man anime, all things considered. I know it's a very different style compared to the manga, but I still really liked it, and it seems like, well, I know for a fact that the like anime style is a bit different for the movie, so hopefully that will put people more on board because I know a lot of people didn't like the anime. And I also like the Bomb Devil arc as a whole. Hopefully that should be really good. And I think that's all the updates on Chainsaw Man for this video. So the next manga that I read in the first half of this year has been The Summer Hikaru Died. I read up to volume 4 of the manga, but volume 5 has came out and I did purchase it and I do need to read it, and I will be doing that as soon as possible because also, the anime is airing this season, summer 2025, and I need to catch up with the manga before the anime overtakes the manga, and then I'm getting spoilers from the anime. That can't happen, because it's already happened once this year, and we can't let it happen again. So those of you who may not be familiar with the premise of the series, this manga takes place in a small rural town in Japan. 2 middle school-aged boys named Yoshiki and Hikaru are the best of friends, but one day Hikaru disappears into the mountains and is fatally injured. However, somehow, Hikaru returns. But this version of Hikaru is not the same. Another being has possessed Hikaru's body, but despite this revelation, Yoshiki still stays near Hikaru. I actually love this manga, mostly for like the art and the concept and like the vibe that they're cultivating, more so than like the plot or the characters, for instance. It's more of just the ambiance that it's creating that makes me really like the series. I do want to establish from the beginning that this is very much a horror manga in my opinion. I think it's more of a horror manga than a like romantic BL manga. Like there's definitely romance and BL elements to it, but I think that the horror and like the thriller aspect of it is what's the bigger part. And I think that's really interesting because I think by focusing on the horror and having 2 main leads who also happen to be gay does a really good job of kind of like normalizing queer relationships in different aspects of media. Sometimes I feel very sad because it feels like BL and GLs are kind of like shoehorned into this specific category. It's like romance, BL, and GL, like they're all 3 different things where you should just have romance, and romance can include relationships of all genders. So I think the idea of having this horror series be on the horror shelf while also having a queer relationship in the main characters is pretty good for like representation purposes. But I digress. Back to the actual reasons why I love the series. Well, I love it for that reason, but the main reasons that I love it. The first is the art. I find the art to be very immersive and haunting. They do a great job of making the manga feel less scary and more unsettling. I want to take a moment to describe my differences between these 2 words. I find that something like, for example, for me at least, Five Nights at Freddy's, I find that more scary than unsettling. I feel like Five Nights at Freddy's is very dependent on jump scares, which, like, don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely terrified to play a Five Nights at Freddy's game, but I'm more terrified than unsettled. Another example in the anime sphere would be the show Another. I also think that that one is very scary, where there's a lot of gore and a lot of deaths that happen throughout the series, but it's not particularly like unsettling, in my opinion. Whereas something that's unsettling is Serial Experiments Lane. I haven't finished it, but from what I've seen so far, it's just kind of weird. The Summer Hikaru Died, while it does have a lot of gore and body horror, it still feels unsettling, and I think the reason for that is like the uncertainty of what is possessing Hikaru's body makes it feel a little less real and makes it weirder. The overall concept of the series is also very intriguing. Like, you have this being that completely possesses a human being's body to the point where it's completely undistinguishable from the original person by so many people in that person's life. Barely anybody recognizes that Hikaru is not the same Hikaru, and one of the only people who knows this for a fact, that this person is not the same, is his absolute best friend. And there are so many warning signs throughout the town that are telling Yoshiki, the friend, to leave the side of Hikaru. Like, you cannot be around this guy. Like, it's so dangerous for you. But despite that, Yoshiki still sticks around because, like, that's his best friend. And, like, it's such an interesting look into, like, grief, where, like, if a person I love that has passed comes to me and, like, I know that they should not be here, but they are here, it's like, what do you do with that? And I feel like Yoshiki is going through a really tough time and nobody's talking about that. I'm genuinely so terrified for his safety. Like, I need him to do something. And, like, maybe he does something in Volume 5, but right now, he's looking very complacent, and I don't know how to feel about that. But I've really been enjoying The Summer Hikaru Died, and I hope I did a good enough pitch to get you interested in it. And there's no excuses because it is currently streaming this season. It's on Netflix, and I don't know where else, but I know it's on Netflix. Some of the scenes are 1-to-1, and I'm like, oh, you could have done something a little different with that. But I also like the elements of changing it up with the mixed media. So, yeah. Let me know what you guys think of both the anime and the manga. Especially, like, if you're a huge fan of the manga, tell me what you think of the anime truly. Because most of the things I've seen have been positive, but I'm also not super deep into the fandom, so I wouldn't really know how a super fan thinks of the anime. So yeah, let me know. So, we are now reaching my personal climax for this video. If I was a video essay channel, this show would get its own video. But I am not a video essay channel, so it will be inserted in the middle of a random manga reading log so that it will just die in the abyss and nobody will know how great the series is. But if you've made it this far, then you will know, and that's all that matters. If I can convince one person to watch this or read this manga, that's all that matters. The series that we are talking about today is Kowloon Generic Romance. I did read a huge portion of the manga before the anime was released, and we will get into the anime and the pacing and all of that, but basically the anime did overtake the manga, and I have been spoiled by what's going to happen at the end of the manga because I watched the whole anime. So we will, again, get into that later. But for those of you who don't know what Kowloon Generic Romance is about, here's a small synopsis. This series focuses on daily life in Kowloon Wall City in Hong Kong, which was once the most densely populated city on Earth before its eventual demolition in the 90s. Our story follows the main protagonist, Reiko Kujirai, as she works for a real estate company in Kowloon, with her coworker, Hajime Kudo. You learn very early on that there's just something off about this Kowloon and about Reiko Kujirai. Specifically, her relationship with Hajime Kudo is a little suspicious. Where do I begin with my love for the series? I love it a lot for similar reasons as The Summer Hikaru Died in terms of like the art, the concept, the vibe, the ambiance that they're presenting, but the reason why I like this one a little bit more is because I also have a strong attachment to the characters that they give me. Also, it's a completely different genre. This is more of it does have romance. It's a mystery, but not a thriller. I'm going to use the same rhetoric structure that I used to talk about The Summer Hikaru Died. So we'll start off with the art for Kowloon. First off, we can talk about the main protagonist, Reiko Kujirai. I'm going to call her Kujirai because that's what everyone calls her. Kujirai, she is very attractive. This was a cover by a couple years ago, actually. I did make a video about like first volume, first impressions of like a bunch of different series, and this was one of them. This was a cover by, I saw her on the cover, I said, she's hot, I need this, I bought it, that's it. That's all I have to say. In terms of characters as well, I do want to say that these characters, in my opinion, I think that the artist does a really good job of not having same face syndrome, because all of these characters have the same like they all have dark hair except for a couple of people, but generally everyone has like very natural hair, and I personally felt like everyone looked different despite that, which is always welcome because some of these series have same face syndrome really bad. But yeah, besides the characters, even the environment, I really liked the art of the environment. I think the interesting thing about Kowloon is that this is not a place that I can visit because it has been demolished, right? When I went to Japan last year, it was very interesting to walk around and you can see exactly where like all of your favorite manga artists get their inspiration, especially for series that take place in Japan. You can see like, oh, this is the environment that they were basing it off of. Whereas Kowloon, like sure, I could go to Hong Kong and see the general vibe of Hong Kong as a place, but you'll never get Kowloon because that place does not exist anymore. And I think that allows a lot of creative liberties to be taken to create this world that takes place within Earth. Like it's not an otherworldly place, but at the same time, it's still not completely real in this time period. The next thing we can talk about is the concept of this series. Without going too deep into spoilers, within the first volume of the series, you find out that there was a hidden history between Kujirai and Kuro, our two main love interests. But this is something that Kujirai has absolutely no memory of. She actually has no memories at all. And you kind of just go along with her trying to uncover the mystery of like why she has no memories, why Kuro and her had a whole thing, but like he's acting normal about it. Like, does he remember? All of that kind of stuff you're kind of unraveling with her. And despite this story being a mystery series, like I said before, I think that because of the main character and like the narrator of the series, it makes it have such a like positive tone despite that. Like, I don't know. If I was Kujirai and I had no memories, I would be crashing out. But she does a really good job of maintaining her composure and being very positive about all the situations that she's presented with. And I think that makes for a really good like narrator for the series. In terms of like the vibe, I think the vibe is great. I think the characters have so much more depth to them than you would think, despite being side characters. And like it's Kujirai's story, but like all of her friends and the people she meets along the way all have their own little flares, and I really like that. One of my personal favorite cup pairings is Gwen and Miyuki. I think their relationship is very interesting. And that is all I will say about that. But my overall favorite character besides Kujirai or Kuro, I mean, it's Kujirai, but besides the main characters, I would say my favorite character is Xiaohei. I like the arc that Xiaohei went through. Anyways, all that is so good. Kowloon is one of my favorite mangas. It is the manga in question I was talking about at the beginning. I love Kowloon so much. However, we do need to address the elephant in the room, and that is the anime that was released in spring of 2025. And honestly, I don't even know what I prefer. Because most of the time, like, for example, let's take, it's not a shoujo, this is not a shoujo either, but I think like romance series in general tend to get shafted, and as well as shoujo series. So, boom. One series that came out recently that hasn't been adapted further was Insomniacs After School, right? So typically, they will take a manga series and they will adapt the first few volumes and then say, here's a very general open-ended ending, so that those of you who don't care to read the manga, you guys can feel a little sad, not too satisfied, but a little satisfied, so that you can go read the manga if you want. But if you don't, this is enough content for you, right? With what Kowloon did, they gave you everything up front. They give you an ending to the series, but nobody's going to want to go back and read the manga because they've seen everything, one. And two, if you're doing it in such a way that they're not experiencing the whole series and you're cutting out so much of the good stuff, they're not even going to want to read the manga, not only because they already saw everything, but because they didn't like it as much as they could have. And that's what's upsetting. But I think I would be complaining all the same if they did like what they did to like Insomniacs After School and like all of these other series. I would be complaining just the same. I'd be upset that they aren't gonna adapt the rest of it. Like I would know that they're not gonna adapt the rest of it, and I would be upset at that fact. So I really don't know which one I prefer. Probably the latter though. But yeah, that is all I have to say about Kowloon, the anime. But the manga, I truly, truly love the manga. It's such an interesting perspective on grief. Like, honestly, if you like the summer Hikaru died, I think you should check out Kowloon. It's different, but honestly, as you go through Kowloon, you would see the parallels. And it goes vice versa. If you like Kowloon, I would also recommend the summer Hikaru died, because as you go through, you'll see the parallels, and I think they complement each other nicely, but they're not the same thing. So, like, if you want something a little different, but with similar themes, like, go check out the other one. But they are not completely the same. But yeah, it was very interesting that I read them back to back, because then I started drawing those parallels in my head. But if you take nothing else from this video, please go read Kowloon. I love it so much, and I don't see anyone talking about it. So we are now entering the territory of series that I have watched but not particularly read. The first series that we're going to be talking about is an anime exclusive series. So, like, it does have a manga, but it was an anime at first, and I've never read the manga and have no intentions of doing so. That is Princess Tutu. I scoured through my channel because I thought that I talked about Princess Tutu at some point, because, fun fact, Princess Tutu is my favorite anime, but I guess I never talked about it on the channel because I couldn't find it. If I find it, I'm going to try to look again. If I find it, I'll link it, but I guess I didn't talk about it. But anyways, this story is about a girl named Duck, or Ahiru if you're watching in Japanese, but I didn't watch in Japanese this time, so we will be referring to her as Duck. Duck is infatuated with the prince of the school, Muto, who just always looks so solemn and lacking emotion. The truth is, Duck is actually destined to be the titular character of Princess Tutu, who is a ballerina who is tasked with finding all of the scattered shards of Muto's heart, which are basically just different portions of emotions for him. Through all this, Duck learns that she, as well as the prince and other characters, Fakir and Rue, are all part of a fairy tale called The Prince and the Raven. In this fairy tale, the prince, Muto, uses his heart to seal off the raven from wreaking any havoc on the town. Due to this, there are plenty of people in opposition to what Princess Tutu is doing with retrieving the heart shards. Low-key, this story becomes a tiny bit convoluted, especially in the second half of the series, which probably goes against what people might think when they see the general art style and like the name of the series. Yeah, I'm gonna leave the synopsis at that. So now, I want to talk about why I love the series so much. First off, I think I've mentioned it on the channel before. Again, like, if you don't know me personally, I do consider myself a bit of a dancer. Right now, I mostly do K-pop dance covers with a dance team, as well as like very, very infrequently on my own pages on the internet. But before that, I did do dance as a child, and I stopped when I was about 11 or 12. I did ballet and jazz. And around the time that I stopped was also around the time where I discovered this series. And I didn't stop for I didn't stop because I didn't like it. I stopped for reasons outside of the fact that I possibly didn't like it. So I think that Princess Tutu came in a time of my life where I like kind of mourned the loss of like professional dance classes, and that's kind of what grew my attachment towards it, because I really like ballet, but ballet is just one of those things that's hard to like do without proper training or technique. That was one reason why I latched onto it, and the second reason I latched onto it was like during this time of my life when I was like prepubescent, middle school aged, I felt like I latched onto a lot of magical girl series because of like the female empowerment message that it had. As a child, I was very insecure. My self-esteem was pretty low during my puberty times, and I think that seeing girls my age in these anime made me feel empowered. And another thing too is like I was very small, and I'm still very small, and like in a time where everyone else is growing and you're the same size and don't like I'm pretty much the same size as I was at that age, and like when you're watching everyone else grow up, it definitely takes hits on your self-esteem. And I feel like a lot of these characters were very juvenile and looked very juvenile, and it made me feel a level of comfort because I was still very juvenile despite like the people around me felt like they were growing up so fast. I just wanted to preface with all of these things because I feel like I do view Princess Tutu through rose-tinted glasses a lot. I have a lot of nostalgia for the series. It holds a lot of emotional value to me, so I understand that it might not be the best series ever, but it's something that's highly personal to me. And throughout my time talking about the things that I think are good about it, maybe won't be perceived as good by somebody else who doesn't have that nostalgic attachment to it. But yeah, we can talk about the things that I think make it a good series outside of my nostalgic attachment to it. I think the series does a really good job of concealing the dark nature of the series. The beginning is very episodic, very like monster of the day, because you're fighting, or not fighting, but you're trying to get all of Miyuto's heart shards. So you basically go through all of the different characters who have different emotions that they're harboring that attract that heart shard to them. So like, I don't remember the exact emotions, but like despair, like loneliness, those types of emotions. They're telling an interesting story each episode, self-contained, about those emotions. And that goes on until about midway through the series, where you have like a mini climax. After that mini climax till the end of the series, it becomes very sequential. By the end of the first half of the series, we hit a very emotional climax that demonstrates the show can and will go dark when necessary, and then it spends the second half of the series diving deeper into this dark element and kind of putting everything in a more sequential order until we get to the final climax at the end of the series. Another thing that happens in the second half of the series that I love so much is that my favorite boy Fakir gets character development, because at the beginning, he is so brash, so harsh, low-key abusive to Muto, but then as you get to know him, you understand his perspective, and like, he's low-key a great guy. He was always my favorite. By the end of the series, I think they do a really good job of wrapping everything up and giving everyone a happy ending. Some get a more bittersweet ending than others, but I think that the ending is very fulfilling. As I've talked about on this channel before in other videos and even in this video, I do love a good beginning, middle, and end. I like when a story is cohesive, because I think that the art of cohesion is lost in manga very, very frequently because of the way that capitalism ruins art, right? So when a story is able to actually tell a very cohesive beginning, middle, and end, I applaud them, especially in manga and anime. And I think that this story does a really good job of that. I truly could go on and on about the series, but I will kind of leave it at that. So let me know if you've ever seen Princess Tutu. I do recommend it to an extent, but again, the number one takeaway from this video is Kowloon, not Princess Tutu. Maybe next Princess Tutu rewatch, it can be the star of the show, but right now it's not. Yeah, let me know if you've seen it and if I've done a good job of convincing you to go watch it. The final anime series we will be discussing in today's video is Mob Psycho 100. This is something I only watched the anime for, did not read the manga, probably will not read the manga. I think the anime is highly regarded on its own, so I will just stick to that. This has been on my list for quite a while to watch, and honestly, I'm shocked that I didn't get to it sooner. I really like it a lot. I did watch this dub, by the way. I've been very much a dub truther lately. I think dub just works better for my lifestyle these days. For those of you who might not be familiar with the plot of Mob Psycho 100, we follow the middle school aged boy named Shigeo Kageyama, nicknamed Mob. He has extremely powerful psychic powers and is pretty emotionally repressed in order to keep those powers under control. He works as an apprentice to this supposed all-powerful psychic Reigen Arataka. Reigen is just a con artist, but the two end up in very wild and unique circumstances, both within the psychic world and just in Mob's ordinary school life. I think I love this series for a variety of reasons. First, Mob, he's so lovable, he's kind of my son, I have a motherly attachment to him. He's truly just doing his best in life, and I love that for him. And I think the funniest thing about him is that he ends up acquainted with such a random assortment of characters. Like, one of the clubs he joins in his school is the Body Improvement Club, which is basically just a bunch of muscular men lifting weights and running to maintain their physique. But he wants a physique too. Like, who said psychics can't be buff? So anyways, he joins the club, and like, the club is so protective of him, and I love that. They are my favorite. And I also love Reigen. If I had to choose a favorite character in the series, it's definitely Reigen. I think the con artist aspect is so funny. Like, I don't know how, I mean, I do know how, I was gonna say I don't know how he convinced all these people to believe in him, but I do know how. Because he's just that goated. I don't know. But despite the fact that he is a con artist, I think that the connection he has with Mob is real, and their bond is very, very much legitimate, and is actually a huge part of kind of like the finale of the series as a whole, and actually a part of a lot of big climaxes throughout the series, and I really appreciate that. Truthfully, when I chose to watch this show, I thought it would be a lot more comedic than anything else, and don't get me wrong, it is very funny, but there are actually a lot of bittersweet moments throughout the series that actually made me kind of emotional at some points. And I think when a comedy is able to do that, where it's able to balance the comedy and like actual plot and actual bittersweet moments, I think that's when comedy truly shines. And I will say one thing, I actually don't like One Punch Man very much. And I think that the existence of One Punch Man in, I think the artist's name is One, but I don't know. The existence of the existence of One Punch Man in this manga artist's catalog was the reason why I never wanted to check out Mob Psycho 100, because I felt like it was going to be the same thing repackaged. But I actually like Mob a lot more than One Punch Man. I think that Mob is a lot better at telling the specific thematic story that I think One Punch Man is also telling. It's like the concept of like an all-powerful person who's super powerful at what they do in their specific field, but are bad at other things. Or maybe I missed the whole point of One Punch Man. Maybe I haven't watched it in like 10 years, so I don't know. But yeah, I think Mob Psycho 100 does a better job of that concept. And that's why I like it so much. I think that I just need a couple more rewatches, and I might put Mob up there in my top anime series, because I really, really liked it. But I also don't want to be too hasty and put it up there without having watched it again. We have finally made it to the end of the video. This has to be one of my most positive videos yet. I liked all of the series we discussed. I feel like usually when I do these videos, there's at least one thing I did not like. I might have finished everything, but there's something that I would not have liked and had a critique about. I guess technically I didn't like the Kowloon anime, but I like Kowloon as a whole. But everything else in this video has been so positive, so we love that for me. I think for this reason, I'm very much open to taking recommendations, so let me know what you think I should check out based on what I liked in this video. I'm looking for some new content. I feel like I'm kind of like rehashing a lot of the same things I've seen or watched right now, so I need some variety in my life. And let me know any of the answers to my other questions in the video. To recap on the crochet project, I didn't crochet at all. I talked with my hands the entire time. I got really passionate because it's all things that I love. So we are exactly where we started with a couple extra stitches. But I want to take this moment to plug my Instagram account. I should have plugged it at the beginning, but I didn't. I have started an fiber arts, fashion, upcycling Instagram account where I will be posting a lot of my designs and things that I make. So you will see the final product of this on that page at some point. Leave a like and subscribe for more of me. I will be uploading consistently, I promise. I said that last time, but I mean it this time, trust.